Hello, hello, and welcome to another midday recipe with me, Chef Day. I'll just say hello to a few people who've already come in. So Anna, Annie, Colleen, Ingrid, who is our admin today. Thank you to Ingrid, Lara, Karen, Danielle, Justine, Denise, George. Lovely to see you all again. I have to tell you though that I didn't get to sleep until about 3 o'clock in the morning. I have no idea why, because I'm usually like a really good sleeper, but I'm a little bit delicate today. So be really gentle with me, like really gentle. Like just send lots of virtual hugs, okay? So if I do get my words mixed up today, I pre-apologise for that. So you'll have to keep me on track. You'll have to keep me on track. I'm pretty sure that we've got like the right recipe title and the right ingredients list. I'm not 100% sure. It's gonna be one of those shows, okay? Occasionally, very occasionally, we have one of those shows where whoever's presenting isn't feeling on top form, but we're still gonna do it. We're still gonna do it because we're here. Okay, so we're going to be making a pan-fried gnocchi today. It's gluten-free, so I'm going to be using gram flour. And let me just show you the picture. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the gnocchi today. Sorry, the gnocchi. We have to be careful how to say it. Make sure that we've got a proper ñ at the start of that. So this is the gnocchi that we're going to be making today. In the picture, I made a really simple truffle sauce with it. We won't be making that today because I just want to show you like the basic gnocchi, and then you can put it with pesto if you want to. You can make a tomato sauce to go with it. There's even a sweet version of gnocchi with cinnamon sugar, which is very lovely. So you could always do that. So, I'm going to leave that up to you guys. I'm just going to do it in a really simple way. Today I've got some pea shoots and some truffle oil, so I'm just going to mix it with that. But really I just wanted to show you, how to make gnocchi gluten-free. You can swap out the gram flour for plain flour. That's absolutely fine. But just to say, if you do that, then don't use bread flour. Just use like a regular flour. 00 would be even better. Okay, so oh gosh, we've already got jokes. We've already got jokes. Jeez, you guys are quick off the mark. Quick off the mark. So basically, you're going to take up the slack for me today. So thank you for that. Thank you. I love you guys so much. Right. Okay. So our ingredients, as you can see, it's just really like a few ingredients. So we've got 500 grams of potatoes. And actually, I'll bring you guys over here so that you can see. Sorry, it's a little bit dark today because the sun has gone away. So I hope that you guys can see okay. So these are the potatoes that I'm using today. So I don't know what type of potatoes these are because they came in my veg box. And unfortunately they don't actually tell you what type of potatoes they are, so I can't tell you. But just to say, with the type of potato that you want to use for gnocchi, it's better to use one that is either halfway between waxy and floury, rather than one that is very floury. So this is quite a good kind of like all-rounder. And so I've got 500 grams of potatoes in here, and I had to get it going before you guys come on the show, because whenever we're making gnocchi, the potato needs to be hot or warm. So we can't do it with cold potato, otherwise it's not very nice. It's not very nice. It can be quite chewy. Justine said that they have lots of potatoes. That's great. And Colleen, of course, quick off the mark with the rainbow. Colleen said, "Who is that puppy under the rainbow?" That's very cute. Okay, so some of you may know who this is actually. I wonder, do any of you guys know who this is? I think you might. It's not a cartoon character, by the way, because that might confuse you. Hey, there we go. Justine's got it. Justine got it. Okay, so this is Frida. And so we've been talking this morning because I wanted to partner with an animal charity, just to stress the fact that, well, to raise money for them, of course, and good cause, but also to stress the fact that this is a vegan school. It's not plant-based. You know, I came to it because of the animals, and I want to kind of like continue that and have this link with an animal charity. So this is Frida, who is from Miracles Mission, and Miracles Mission is a charity that helps rehabilitates dogs. I don't know if they do cats as well, but the lady who started it, Victoria, she went to Borneo and saw what happened to the street dogs there, and set up this charity. So Frida actually has wheels. So she is paralysed from the waist down, and they've got a few dogs that are like that as well. So they will fit them with wheels on the back, and sometimes there are dogs that have maybe a paw missing, and they will fit them with prosthetics as well. So they do really, really amazing work. And they are in the process of fundraising to create a rehabilitation centre in the UK. So I think that that's like a really good thing that we could all get behind. And Frida is our what is beneath the rainbow today. There we go. There we go. And do have a look at Miracles Mission's website. Frida is adorable. All of them are adorable. All of them are adorable. Okay. So, let's see. So Sarah, good morning, and Jim and Catherine. And Catherine is asking a really, really good question. What type of potato would you use for mash or gratin? So with mash, you want one that is floury. That is better rather than waxy. I'm not going to kind of like name specific types of potatoes, because depending on where you are in the world, you will have certain ones available to you. But with mash, one that is floury. But I would say that the key with a mash is to make sure that you've drained all of that water off completely. So when the potato is still hot, you know, you drain it and let the steam take more of that water, that moisture out of it. And with a gratin, you shouldn't really have really floury potatoes, because with a gratin, I am tired. I meant with a rosti. I was thinking about a rosti. So with a rosti, having potatoes that hold together a bit better, so that aren't too floury, is good, because you want to cook them, cool them, and then grate them. You don't want them falling apart in your hands, obviously. So a bit of waxiness with a rosti is a really, really good idea. A rosti is a beautiful thing, by the way, and we should definitely make that together one day. That is actually the first recipe that I ever demoed. Yeah, and so sorry, Catherine was asking about the gratin. So with the gratin, I would say one that is either somewhere in the middle or floury. When they're too waxy, it's the texture isn't quite right, but I would say like somewhere in the middle is absolutely fine. Elizabeth says hello from not so sunny Bolton. Oh, well, it's not sunny here either, and I'm in Sussex. So yes, yeah, it's a bit of a dreary rainy day, but we do them really well in the UK. Okay, so Sarah says, can we use red potatoes for this, like the ones you used the other day? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say just don't use ones that are really floury. Really floury. Just at any type of oil, exclamation mark. I think you probably meant a question mark with that. Yes, any type of oil, we're going to be frying them. So basically, this is what I wanted to actually tell you guys. So with my recipe, because I'm using gram flour, the gram flour has a very nasty taste when it's raw. So we want to make sure that it is completely cooked out. Okay, so we're going to make the gnocchi and boil them very, very carefully. And then we're going to pan fry them. Okay, so let's get over to my potatoes, which are here. And so you want to boil them until they are just cooked. I cut some of these down to size because I wanted them to all be around the same size. It's better if you boil potatoes that are all the same size, but of course sometimes that's not possible. So if you have potatoes that are slightly different sizes, try to get them into the same size. So these took around 20 minutes to cook. Not even that, actually, about 15 minutes. About 15 minutes. Josh says, can you do this with sweet potatoes? Don't actually have any. Patricia asked the same question. To be honest, I don't like sweet potato gnocchi, but you can. Yeah, you can. I really don't like it though. So I've made purple potato gnocchi, which is lovely. Joss said that her brain is half asleep today, so that's good because between us we have a whole brain. Okay, right. So these are fully cooked, and I'm going to test that with a fork and test it with the biggest potato that is in there. You can stop beeping. Test it with the biggest potato that is in there rather than the smallest potato, and that goes with anything that you're cooking. Okay, so if you want to test the doneness of anything that you have cooked, always try the biggest one. Okay, so I'm going to give these a drain. So let me just quickly do that. Okay, and so it's good just to leave them in the colander, just to kind of like get the air to them. You'll see they will get drier. Okay, so the steam will really work to help you get these potatoes drier, and that's what we want. We don't want our potatoes to be very wet. Oh, and hello to Nasa and Karen and Nora. Thank you for joining us. So as you can see today, we're making pan-fried gluten-free gnocchi. So with these potatoes, we want them to dry out. So we're not just going to put them back into the pan because there's going to be a bit of water left in the pan there. Not a huge amount, but you know, we need to make our potatoes drier, definitely. You don't want them to be watery at all. Okay, so we're just going to leave this for a few minutes just to steam and to air. There is another way that you can work with the potatoes for gnocchi, which is you can bake them. So if you guys happen to have made too many baked potatoes, then you can just use the insides of a baked potato as well. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so we do need to make the gnocchi while our potatoes are still warm, but we need to make sure that they are easy enough to handle, cool enough for us to handle. And there is a reason why. Bring you back, guys, back over here so we can see each other, which is always nice. There is a reason why the term hot potato is a thing, because potatoes get very hot. So beware. And as you all have seen, that is hot. As you'll have seen, these still have the peel on. Yeah, I haven't peeled them. And the reason for that is because it stops them from getting too wet. It does stop them from getting too wet. And also I've been told by people, and I'm not entirely sure that this is true, but that they retain more flavour if you cook them in their skins. I'm not sure, but to be honest, like, it saves you a job. So literally, just the big ones I just cut in half so that they're roughly the same size. So don't worry about peeling them. Mariam, good to see you here. Thank you for joining us. And Clive, hola. It's Ola. Probably Ola. Okay, right. Okay, so we're going to just leave these to cool for a few minutes, and I'm going to get some more water on to boil. So we want a nice big pan here, so that the gnocchi have enough space to float to the top. And that is going to be how we will know that they are done. So I'll just grab some water. There we go. And bring it to the boil. So it's good when you are making anything like this, just to have that water bubbling away and hot and ready for you, whilst you get on with making gnocchi. We don't have to salt this pan because we're going to be putting salt in the gnocchi, so don't worry about that at all. Okay, so now I can start peeling my potatoes, and they should be fairly easy. Yeah. just to do this. If you can't take this off just with your fingers in the way that I can, what you can do is you can just get a little knife. So we don't need a big knife. For this, we can just use a knife like this and just scrape the sides. Okay. There we go. And you can see, you know, it comes off fairly easily, and it's actually easier to take the peel off this way, the skin off this way, than it is with a peeler when they're raw. So these are hot. I don't know if you can see like the steam coming off there, but they are going to be hot. So if we wait for the potato to cool down too much, you might find it difficult to make it into a decent mash. You know, it might be quite lumpy. And also the gnocchi might be quite tough too. And the thing is, like, we are fighting against the fact that gram flour is quite a heavy flour. So these gnocchi aren't as fluffy as I would like them to be, but it's a good kind of like base recipe. You know, it's like fairly simple. I think that you could also experiment with adding maybe a bit of tapioca flour just to lighten it up a bit. There we go. Okay, so this is probably going to get incredibly boring. So I'm going to bring you guys over here and then you can ask me some questions. So has anybody got any questions about potatoes? And also, we've already been through all of the potato jokes already, right? Because I keep making like potato stuff. Because you guys asked me to. But it does mean that we've run out of potato jokes, I think. I think so. Right. So, and actually, I can talk to you guys about this because on my Facebook, somebody was asking about vegan foods that are good for depression. And so, you know, quite a few people had responded and mentioned, you know, very like specific ingredients that we use that are great for our mood, which is wonderful. But I actually responded and said that, you know, when I had depression, or when I have depression, because, you know, it doesn't really, sometimes it still like rears its ugly head. One of the great things that I can do for myself is to make myself a meal. I think quite often we're not that good at giving ourselves some good, nice vegan food made from scratch. Quite often we'll do it for other people, but, you know, for ourselves we'll be like, oh, we'll just like, you know, shove something in a pan and that's it. But actually it's a really, really, really good action of self-care. Just like giving yourself the task, like if you can't do anything else that day, and I totally understand, you know, that when you feel like that, you just feel like doing nothing. But if you can just make yourself a bowl of healthy food that day, then it's a really, really good baby step. And also, like, I find cooking so meditative because, you know, like this that I'm doing here is really repetitive. And some people could find it boring, but, you know, like while I'm doing this, I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not worrying about anything else. I'm just thinking about these potatoes, and that's it. So it's actually like a really, really good break from all of the negative self-talk when we're feeling depressed. Okay, so our water is done. So I'm just going to turn it right down. See if we've got any questions. Colleen said, are weighing the potatoes before we boil or after we have cooked and peeled? So it's before. It's before. So with my recipes, what I will do is, you know, if I meant in that recipe 500 grams of boiled potatoes, I would say boiled potatoes. So you would know in that instance that they have been boiled. Jenny says, what is your opinion on corn if you've not used it in any of your recipes? So Jenny, I really, really try and get away from highly processed. and I think corn is highly processed. So yeah, don't use it. Don't use it. There are some things that I do use in recipes that are processed, but I try to keep it to a minimum, and I only do it when I think that it gives a result that nothing else can give. So a good example of that is like the cream cheese, the vegan cream cheese that we use, because it is a really, really good product. And if you were to make that from scratch yourself, it would be a little bit complicated. So we have used something like that in the past, and also margarine. The reason being with the margarine, like, I think it's more accessible to people than, for example, like the refined coconut oil that I really like to use. So yeah, it really depends. It really depends. It's quite we have like a food policy in the school, and so, you know, it's quite nuanced. Like, we try to encourage people to work with more seasonal, sustainable ingredients, but we also recognise that for some people, like, they just want a really like easy like cake recipe, and it can be really easy to just use like margarine for that. So we don't want it to be, you know, too prohibitive for people. But I'm not a massive fan of corn. But you can use, like, you know, soy mince and, you know, other bits and pieces like that. So, let me just see if I've missed any questions. Oh, Melanie says that you made some gnocchi once and it was so much effort, and then it was like bricks. Oh no, what are you talking about gnocchi? Maybe you'll have better. I mean, I think that you just need to do some troubleshooting there. Honestly. Justine says that she finds cooking so good for mental health. You can get away from everyone and be in your little bubble and concentrating on what to do. Absolutely. I think it's such a great thing to do. And at the end of it, you get a really lovely, nutritious meal, or you get a really lovely, like, comfort food meal. Whatever you're feeling, absolutely fine. But you get a really yummy plate of food at the end of it. George's Marmite is processed. Well, yes. Okay, so that's one of the things that we have in our food policy, is that we try to use, wherever possible, minimally processed food, because like tofu is processed, soy milk is processed, oil is processed. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we use that is processed, but we try to make the see the difference between ultra processed food and minimally processed food. And then there are those things, as I said, like the cream cheese, which is fairly processed. It is fairly processed, but it's going to be a lot easier for people to use that. So yeah, it's a nuanced thing. It is a nuanced thing. Colleen said, yes, but we only use it 1 teaspoon at a time. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, okay, so Marmite, I'm not sure how Marmite differs to the yeast extract that we get. We get a yeast extract from Meridian, who I think are an amazing company. So do check them out. That's Meridian. And it's a yeast extract, but I don't think it's massively processed. And it's really, really good for vegans in particular, actually, because it's a really good source of B12. Really good source of B12. So, I mean, I think that, you know, yeast extract is probably no more processed than nutritional yeast, because like it's a similar product. Okay, there we go. We've done our potatoes. Let me just quickly wash my potatoey hands. Okay, so Cara says, could you use coconut flour instead of gram flour? I'd be worried about that. I would be worried about that. But with all of these things, I always say try it out. But I know that coconut flour and gram flour, they are quite different to each other. And when we're talking about flours, we have to think of like how thirsty they are. So I know some of you guys have experimented with our recipes and subbed the flours, and you found that, I think that there was somebody made the cookies and needed to add a lot more liquid to it. And that's because the flour that they used was a lot more thirsty than the flours that we use. So I would say try it out, but proceed with caution. But I will show you why we can be a bit flexible with this recipe. So we've got our potatoes here, and I've got my flour here. And you'll see in the ingredients list we've put 100 to 150 grams of gram flour, and that's because we don't necessarily know how much these guys are going to need, because you might still have quite a lot of water in these, hopefully not, but you know, they may have retained some water. Mine are fairly dry. Or you know, if you're using like a different type of different type of potato, then they may also need more or less flour. So with this recipe, we have to go with what it looks like and what it feels like. Okay, so we've got to get to know the feel of our gnocchi. So we don't want it to be sticky anymore. We want it to be dry enough to roll, but we want to limit the amount of flour that we put in. So the more floury that we make it, the more dry it will be. The less fluffy it will be. But we just want to add enough flour so that it holds together, and we can make them into gnocchi. Okay, so I've got my potato masher here. You can do this in a potato ricer if you have one. Potato ricer is something that makes potato into a very, very, very fine mash. Okay, so in my bowl, I'm going to add my salt first. So just remember that it does need a really, really good whack of salt. So this is around like 1 teaspoon, but you know, half to 1 teaspoon, something like that, you're going to need in here. Okay, and I'm just going to mash it, and it should be fairly easy to mash it because it's still warm. As I said, we need it to be still warm. We can't do this with cold potatoes. If you've got cold potatoes left over from something, then we make something else with it. Okay, we don't make gnocchi with it. We make a nice potato salad with it instead. Okay? Because with gnocchi, it's all about the texture. It's all about the texture. Okay, and this isn't the best masher in the world, so it can still produce quite lumpy mashed potato. So I'm doing it a few times, but I'm trying not to overwork it. So with potato, it is possible to overwork it, and then it can become quite dense. So we don't want to keep mashing it for a long time. Right, there we go. And so now we just need to add our gram flour and start mixing that in. So, oops, start with that amount. Okay, and you can see like it looks like it's going to be too dry already, but that's because we need to get our hands involved. So I'm not going to overwork it, because if we overwork it, we will create tough gnocchi, and we don't want that. So now this is incorporated, I can feel it, and I feel that it is still too sticky. Okay? I don't know if you can hear that. I can feel it, but there's also like a slight sound to it as well, because it is still too sticky. So we're just going to add a bit more of our flour. Okay. Right, there we go. So that is what we want it to be like. It's a nice lovely yellow colour because we've used the gram flour. One of the bonuses of using gram flour. Okay, so and now we can start to make the gnocchi. So you need a nice big board. That's why we've got our big board with us today. And then you want to take chunks off, and don't tear off too big chunks, okay? So we don't want like massive chunks because it's going to be difficult to deal with. Okay, and I'm just rolling it into a sausage shape, and then, so if you can see my method, I roll it up and down, and at the same time I'm spreading my fingers. So we're just doing it fairly slowly. We're just encouraging it to go thinner. Okay, we're not pushing it, we're just gently coaxing it. Okay. So, and again. Now, sometimes you might roll this and you'll get a split down the middle. And that's just because, you know, there's a bit of flour that hasn't been incorporated properly. So you can just roll it back together and you should be okay. So I do want to make these fairly small because we've got this gram flour issue. So gram flour and also yellow pea flour, which is very, very similar to gram flour, will taste pretty nasty if it's in its raw state. So we want to make sure that it is we do want to make sure that it is completely cooked out as much as possible. So that is why we're going to make them small, and that is why we're going to pan fry them. But I must say that pan frying them is delicious. It's really naughty. It's really, really naughty. So Sarah, I know that you aren't having refined oil at the moment, so I would say that if you want to omit the oil part of it, then what you could do is either bake the gnocchi afterwards in the oven, or have your pan on really, really low. Really low. So Catherine has asked a really good question. Can I use new potatoes for gnocchi? So it depends on how waxy those new potatoes are. If they are really waxy, then I would say no. If they're somewhere in between floury and waxy, then yes. Ah, George says, love the overhead view for this. Yeah, it's really, really useful. It's really, really useful, isn't it? I mean, you guys can see probably, because it's all about the hands. You know, it's all about you guys seeing like what my hands are doing and seeing the technique. Because try as I might, it's really difficult to explain how to do these things. It's much better if you can see. And in fact, the optimal is much better if you can do. Like, that is the way that we learn the best when it comes to food. And yes, that is me nagging you to cook along with us sometime. See how I got that in there? And again, this is a very meditative thing to do. I've probably mentioned it to you guys before, but Michael Pollan, I don't know if you've seen any of his programs on food. He says, you know, the great thing about cooking is this meditative thing that you just stir the pot. You just stir the pot, and how lovely that is to be like really present in that moment. I think that's probably one of the reasons why I love to cook, because all I need to focus on is this. You know, I just need to be completely present, not worrying about anything that happened in the past, not worrying about anything that's going to happen in the future, just thinking about rolling my gnocchi. And also, it's like Play-Doh. It's like Play-Doh. So it reminds me of school, which is always a good thing. Well, it reminds me of art class, I should say, which is always a good thing. I absolutely loved art class. There we go. So we're nearly there. So this recipe makes enough for 2 people, because gnocchi it's quite filling. It's quite filling, so you don't need much of it at all. You've seen the picture that we served it with a bit of salad. So, and that will be a really, really good combination, because the gnocchi, as I said, is quite heavy. And the gnocchi that I made especially, you know, I made it with truffle paste. So that is very rich, very, very flavoursome. And so because we have the salad, it lightens it. I'm just going to wash these, go back in a sec. Okay, guys, now we can get on to the next stage. We'll just get rid of these and these. So basically, the next thing that we want to do is want to cut them into our gnocchi pieces, and then we can pop them in the pan to cook. So we can just be as rough as we want with this. I worked for an Italian family for a few years, and one of the things that I learned from them is that it's okay for food to be messy. I would always like try to make my lasagnas look perfect, and you cannot make a lasagna look perfect. Like, one of the I think the good thing about food like this is that it looks messy. You know, it's more rustic, and that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. So you'll see with these, they don't squidge in. Oh, there you are. They don't squidge in at the bottom, so they're actually like quite wide. So sometimes, like when you're making gnocchi, they will look more pillow-like. They look like little pillows. There we go. And just trying to make them the same size as much as possible. But when we put them into the pan, we want to make sure that they don't stick together. And if I was using plain flour for this, I would dust the board. I would dust the board because they tend to be a bit stickier actually when they're made with gluten flour. These ones aren't too bad at all. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to put them into our pan, but we're going to do it in batches. Justine said you should do one of those relaxing CDs. I should, like talking people through different cooking things, and yeah, getting them to meditate whilst I talk to them about a recipe. That would be amazing. Okay, so now we're going to pop these into the pan, but a word of warning, this might scorch you. So just be careful when you're popping them into the boiling water because it is very hot, and if you drop one from like up here, then it's probably going to splash you, and then that's going to hurt. So I'm coming closer to it, and I'm putting them in one by one. Even though like I've got I've got like a few in my hands, I'm putting them in one by one just to help them not to stick together too much. There we go. So we can probably do this in like 3 batches. So I'm looking at how much space there is on the bottom of that pan, and that will be my guide as to how many we can fit in here. There we go, that's probably it. Okay, so now we're going to just leave this. Might just pop it up. Actually, no, I'm just going to leave it as is. Be patient. Be patient, that is definitely key. So let me just see if we have any questions. Catherine said, I like gnocchis with applesauce. Applesauce savoury and fruit stewed as a dessert. Nice, that sounds lovely. Colleen said, how wide would you say they are for my notes? Okay, right. They're as wide as my finger. Does that help? There we go. I think that's probably about 1.5 centimeters wide. I think so. About 1.5 centimeters wide. Okay, and Lisa says, what do you think about using the fork method to make grooves for the sauce to stick? Yeah, absolutely. If you want to go to that effort, then you can. Absolutely. Oh, and Colleen said that's what I was waiting for. I see the fork on the counter. That was actually to test my potatoes to see how cooked they were. But you can absolutely do that, and that will flatten them a bit as well. But yeah, it depends. Like if you want to go to that effort, then you can. If you are, actually, you guys can come here. If you are pairing it with more of a thick sauce, then it's probably good to do the thick method, so that it will catch, some of the sauce. Same principle goes for pasta as well. I'm just going to put mine with an oil, so I'm actually going to put some truffle oil with it, and also some of these lovely pea shoots. So these are the pea shoots that I've been regrowing using peas from Carlin peas from Hodwood Dodds. So I'm going to use just some of those, you know, just in the same way that you would a load of herbs with gnocchi. So therefore my sauce isn't thick. But if you guys want to do that, then do go ahead. You know, it's an extra step. So I would suggest that if it's your first time making gnocchi, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. It will still taste nice. It will still taste really, really nice. Okay, so our gnocchi is on the move. Denise says, what kind of sauce would you have with gnocchi? Babe, like, the world is your oyster with that. Your vegan oyster, I should say. Pesto would be lovely with it. In this picture, I made a really lovely truffle paste sauce. So that was with garlic and onions that were fried. I added a little bit of white wine, and then I added a load of truffle paste and some white pepper. And so that is, you know, very, very flavoursome, very, very rich. But you don't have to pair it with something like that. A tomato sauce is really, really lovely. And you can even pop all of the gnocchi with the tomato sauce, put it into an oven dish, and then put some vegan cheese on the top of it and put it into the oven. That's lovely. That's lovely. And also, if you need to make gnocchi and you don't know exactly when you're going to be eating, then that's a really, really good thing to do. Know when you're going to be eating, and you can literally just serve it, you know, cook it, serve it and eat it, then, you know, do it another way. But if you really aren't sure, you know, are you going to be eating at like 7 or 7:30, then put it with tomato sauce, with some vegan cheese, and into the oven, and then you can just keep it on a low temperature to keep warm. So Justine asks a really good question. Why do they float when they are done? I have no idea. I have no idea, but that should be a joke. There we go. So our gnocchi are starting to float. As I said, they are on the move. So now we can take them out of the pan, and just for the moment, just turn that down. Just for the moment, we're just going to leave them to one side whilst we cook the rest of them. And as you can see, I'm using a slotted spatula. And that's just to stop as much water as I can from coming with me. Or coming with the gnocchi, I should say. I don't have a slotted spoon, by the way. That's why I'm using a spatula. If you've got a slotted spoon, better. There we go. And actually, what we can do is I'll just show you how to pan fry these. We don't need to do all of these. I'll save these for later. Let's get on to the interesting bit. Right. So let's just take our pan off. So if anybody is going to cook this later, then just do all of it. Cook all of the gnocchi in the saucepan in the water, and then have them all out on, you know, in a bowl or something wide where they're not piling up on top of each other. You don't want them to pile up on top of each other. So you know, either kind of like a plate or a couple of plates or a baking tray or something like that, just so that they're open like this. And then we can go on to the next stage, which is pan frying them. So as I said, if you're using plain flour, you might be okay to stop here, because you won't have that raw taste of gram flour, which is what I'm trying to get rid of with cooking them a bit more. Okay, so I'm going to pop our pan on to a high heat. So the highest that I ever go with frying on this is a 7, because it is an absolute demon. Okay, so right, Justine says apparently the outside cooks first and then the inside, so there is air that gets trapped. Okay. And Colleen says, do you have to wait for the water to reboil before we add the next batch? No, you don't. because the thing is, like, we don't necessarily need it to be like it will retain its heat. It will retain its heat. And actually, we don't want it to be like a rapid boil. We really don't want it to be a rapid boil because that might actually like throw those gnocchi around the pan. We don't want it to be a rapid boil. So bring that water up to a boil and then bring it down. Bring it down to a simmer. Okay, and just as it must be the same as ravioli. Yeah. Sarah says, so instead of pan frying, would you put it straight in the oven, or do you still put in pan without boil before going to the oven? So any idea of temperature time? To be honest, I haven't done it, but I would at this point taste your gnocchi and see how they are. Because if you can't taste the gram flour, then you don't need to do anything else to them. In fact, let me taste one of these and I'll see how it is. And it's always better to taste a bigger one rather than a smaller one. But yeah, there's a slight taste of gram flour. Now, if you're going to put it with a really flavoursome, really flavoursome sauce, you don't need to do this. You don't need to pan fry them. That said, you might want to pan fry them. Just a word of warning, the smoke alarm might go off. Okay, and now you can see, actually, can you see, that this is smoking, okay? So we need it to be the top. If it isn't hot enough, because it's potato, it will stick to the bottom of the pan. You really need to sear it. Really get that intense heat. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to allow it to cook. I'm not going to move these around just yet. It's really tempting to do so. I'm going to just tilt the pan, making sure that the oil is getting onto all of the gnocchi. There we go. Just get my clean bowl. Colleen said, I might have to try another air fryer experiment. Yeah, that's a really great idea. Really great idea. It would be really nice to see if you can do these and that. Okay, so I am using, gosh, it's a difficult day. I'm using my wooden spoon. I absolutely love this spoon. And it's got a nice straight-ish edge there. So it's great for, first of all, using in a non-stick pan, so I'm not going to scratch it. But just kind of jimmying these up. There we go. So you can see that they're getting a nice golden brown on it. So this spoon is really good at lifting up things like this. So it's great when you find one of these, like you don't ever want to let it go. You don't ever want to let it go. You'll have it for like decades, absolutely decades. So you can see really lovely colours. And in fact, I need to get my my pea shoots ready. So I'm just going to cut a load of pea shoots and just chop them into my bowl. I'm just being really rough with them and using scissors. I love using scissors in the kitchen. It makes life a lot easier. Right, there we go. So just this extra cooking will take away any of that gram flour flavour. And also, it does make them quite decadent. And naughty. I was really toying with the idea of calling them naughty gnocchi. But, yeah, maybe I'd be the only person that would laugh at that. It's a bit carry on. It is a bit carry on, calling them naughty gnocchi. Okay, so there we go. They're just about done. So I'll turn off our pan. I'm going to add, I've got a little bit of truffle oil here. This truffle oil is vegan, so there will be some truffles out there, but it will be the ridiculously expensive ones that are not vegan because they use pigs or dogs to find them. But most truffle oil, in fact, pretty much, I think all truffle oil, if it's not, if you don't need a mortgage to remortgage your house to buy it, then it will be vegan. It will be vegan. But it is one of those things that sometimes people do question, definitely. Okay, so here we go, guys. Almost there. So I'm just going to mix these in. Ah, that truffle oil. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. But it's nice to have this green as well and the lightness of the peas, the pea shoots, which basically taste like peas, but really intense peas. Peas and mushroom go together really, really well. Really well. Okay, there we go, guys. That is our pan-fried gnocchi with our lovely pea shoots and some truffle oil. Oh, that was something, wasn't it? Oh, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this recipe. Please do let me know if you've got any questions before we head off. So Lisa says, I love the browning onion gnocchi. I have trouble with that. Okay, so you need that oil to be at a high heat. It was just at smoking point. It was just at smoking point because it needs to sear it. Because potato, if it isn't hot enough, then the potato just sticks to the pan. So yeah, but that is why something like this is really, really useful, because if it does stick to the pan, then you can jimmy it off. You can even add like a little bit of water just to help bring that up. Gloria says it looks lovely. Good, good, good. Justine says, no, actually, Justine, I think you should try pea shoots, because we may be able to get you to like pea shoots, and then that's just like a baby step towards peas. So maybe. So let me just see if we've got any more questions. Right. Anthony says, I've never had truffle oil. What does it taste like? It's got this lovely musty flavour. So it's really rich in umami, and umami is one of the things that we really focus quite a lot on in the school, because umami is one of the 5 tastes, and it is said that umami is the taste that people miss the most when they become vegan or vegetarian, because it is present in things like cooked meat and cured meat and fish. But we can find umami in things like mushrooms and also seaweed as well, and miso and anything fermented. So it has such a deep umami flavour. So it's a lovely savouriness. Yeah, so really, really lovely, and it smells divine as well. So it's a really, really good, easy, like go-to ingredient that will make a dish really, really lovely without you having to put lots of different ingredients in it. It really does make a dish taste awesome. So love truffle paste as well, but it's expensive. It is expensive. Okay, Annie asked, what's the truffle oil make? So actually, my lovely Jeff, he bought me a pack of black truffle oil and white truffle oil for, it was either my birthday or Valentine's Day. I get kind of mixed up because they're one day apart. But yeah, it was a gift of him, which was very, very lovely. Spot on as well. Because I am that type of chick. I'm like, I don't really care about people buying me like perfume or jewelry. I just want truffle oil and balsamic vinegar and chef's tools. So yeah, but let me hold this up to the close camera, the webcam, and then you guys can see. So I think that word there is intergourmandise. Intergourmandise. Let me get that really, really close. No, you can't see. Okay, there you go. But it came in a pack of 2. And he even, bless him, he researched the different types, the different brands, and which one would be good. So very good present. So you guys are suggesting that I go and have a cup of tea. I'm definitely going to have some gnocchi and then a cup of tea. And they said leave the cleanup for later. Go and take a well-deserved nap. Definitely. Or leave the cleanup to Jeff. That's a bit unfair. It's back to work now, which is, you know, brilliant, really brilliant, because, you know, their business is has loads of inquiries this week, which is wonderful. And he says, what I meant was, where did you get the truffle oil? I don't know where he got it from. I can ask him though. Do you want me to ask him and see if he can post a link later on? Lisa says, what else do you cook truffle oil with? Well, to be honest, I don't really cook with it. It's more like you use it as like a dressing. So it's more like that type of oil. So truffle oil with chicory is really lovely. There's a really simple salad that is literally just the white chicory chopped up with truffle oil. It is really, really delicious. It's a really great finishing oil. Really good with any salads. Really good with any salads because it has like this savoury kind of like musky depth to it. So imagine, you know, you've got a salad that is quite sweet and light and fragrant, and it's a really, really good balancer for that. But great on potato as well. Really great on potato. So if you think your mushroom and potato go together really, really well. So anything that goes well with mushroom goes really, really well with truffle. Really. Okay. Con! We missed you, but I'm really glad that you made it right for the very end so that we could give you like a million virtual hugs. Thank you for coming along. And Catherine said, oh yes, good balsamic vinegar. Any tips so you can have them on strawberries? Oh my gosh, that we don't have much time to talk about balsamic vinegar. I could talk about it for days. Let me just go and get my balsamic vinegar for you. Where is it? There we go. Okay, so this is just cheap balsamic vinegar that I reduced. Okay, so you can do that to make it thicker. So if you're going to have it with something like ice cream or strawberries, which I really recommend, or you know, you have it as just a few drips on a plate, you want the flavour to be really, really intense. So it's much better to reduce it for two reasons. One, because it will make the flavour more intense, and two, because you can put like dots of it on the plate. If it was too thin, then it would just dribble all around the place, you know, all over your plate. But if you thicken it, so you can just reduce it in a pan, you just pop it in a pan, bring it to the boil and reduce it by about half. That's it, and then it becomes a lot thicker. So I've done that just like with cheap balsamic vinegar. But I also went on my last holiday. I went to Modena because I absolutely love balsamic vinegar. So I wanted to go to a place where they grew it and produced it. And so I found this really amazing producer, and such a lovely guy. And he named his balsamic vinegar farm after his wife. So it's called Clara, which is really adorable. So if any of you guys fancy going to Modena, then do look for Clara, Clara, and he will give you a guide. He will give you a tour around it, and it was just so lovely, so lovely. So this one is, it isn't just regular balsamic vinegar. This is, well, it's 25-year-old balsamic vinegar, but also it was matured in juniper wood, which is lovely. It's really nice. It's really nice, and just like a few drops of it, so you use it very, very sparingly. You know, as you can see, like it's quite thick, so it isn't something that you would make a salad dressing with. But I have been known to make a lovely salad like with things like nasturtium leaves and, you know, other kind of like plants, and, you know, really pretty, and then a few drops of this on it and a tiny bit of oil, and that's it. But it is quite thick. So basically, you know, you've got these two different types of balsamic vinegars and two different ways of using it. So either as this finishing element where you can drizzle it on, it's very, very flavoursome, or when it's thin and then you want to make like a you know, salad dressing with it. So we've got those two ones. But I would say with balsamic vinegar, that there is the more you pay for it, the better it is. Basically, it is one of those ingredients that's like olive oil. Yeah, and there's a lot of balsamic vinegar out there that isn't really balsamic vinegar. So yeah, the really really cheap stuff, the really cheap stuff, doesn't really doesn't really taste very good. I don't think. Anyway. And let me just see if we've got any more questions. Justine says, I have to say our community is amazing. So many nice people and new friends. Oh, I love it when I see you guys making friends and chatting and stuff like that. It's really, really lovely. And yeah, Colleen said that we're all different ages as well. And Sarah says, can you do a recipe with chicory? Yes, absolutely. We can put that on the list. So if you can pop that into the group, that would be great. Thank you, Sarah. And Catherine said, thank you. The cheap ones have sugar in it, etc. Yes, yeah, they can do. They can do. And Patricia says, I thought the majority contains gluten. Not with balsamic vinegar. But particularly, you know, if you get like good ones, then you'll be all right. But in the UK, it would say if it had gluten in it. It would definitely say if it had gluten in it. I'm not sure about other countries though. And we have finally, yes, this is what we've all been waiting for. A joke from Khan, which is, what do you call a potato with right angles? A potato with right angles. I don't know. Anybody? Right, while you guys can figure that out, I'm gonna have a try of this. Cannot taste the ground fowl at all. Really, really nice. Really nice. So guys, let me know if you make this. I would love to see your pictures. Make sure your pan is on a high heat, okay? Make sure your pan is on a high heat. We don't want any disasters in the pan. So I think that we're gonna have to leave it there, and I'm not gonna get to find out what do I call a potato with right angles. So maybe I'll find out next time. Which will be tomorrow. So tomorrow we will be making a cobbler, and I will put the ingredients up later on today. So if you guys want to cook along with me, then you can. Thank you to everybody who's joined me today. And as always, have a lovely day.